Welcome to Backstage Academy Live Events Together. I'm Chris Madden, Backstage Academy Student Wellbeing Officer and Registered Counselling Psychotherapist. In this series of 4 short films, I've invited 3 industry experts to explore the impact of coronavirus on the live event industries and higher education from the context of mental health. Leading the panel conversation are psychotherapist and musician Adam Ficek, Eric Matangwazi of industry music charity Music Support, and Backstage Academy's Head of Institution, Rachel Nicholson. In this first episode, we're discussing the question, what does COVID-19 mean to the live events industry? It's lovely to see you all. My name is Chris Madden. I'm a counselling psychotherapist at Backstage Academy, a live events university. I am Student Wellbeing Officer and joined today by Rachel Nicholson, who is the Head of Institution at Backstage Academy, Adam Ficek, who's a therapist and musician, and Eric Matangwazi is the Managing Director of Music Support. Rachel, could you tell us a little bit about yourself? Give us some background on who you are, where you've come from.
Yeah, I'll give you a very brief background. My sort of background is in lighting. I trained in lighting specifically for theatre, but my passion has always been visuals and cinematography. So I originally went to go and do lighting because I wanted to be a cinematographer, and then I got adopted onto my local stage crew and suddenly found that actually if you combine live visuals with real people, it's far more exciting. So my background as an educator is that I've been teaching people at degree level since 2003. So I've been doing it for a fair while, and I've created some courses, and I really enjoy working with young and emerging practitioners. A few years ago, I also became a mental health first aider, because one of the things in my experience as an educator that was becoming much more prevalent was actually a need to be able to have a discourse with students, and for students to be able to come and talk to us and identify how we could further support students as part of their pastoral care.
Brilliant, thank you. Eric, could you say a few words, please?
Sure. Hi, my name's Eric Matangwazi. I'm the Managing Director at Music Support, which is a national charity which is set up by peers within the music industry to support peers in recovery in the broadest sense, where that's related to mental health and or addiction. And Music Support's been going since 2016, and we run a host of core services which are peer-led, from a telephone helpline, which I can tell you a little bit more about during the course of the conversation, where you can pick up the phone and speak to a peer that works within the industry who's trained as a mental health first aider, and also by our addiction counsellor to be able to provide a listening ear and supportive service and signposting if necessary. We also do work at festivals backstage, where we host things like 12-step support group meetings, for anybody that's working within the industry, whatever your role is, and we're there just to kind of promote good health and looking out for people. We run training initiatives where we deliver mental health first aid training, among other trainings as well. And we've recently launched a new initiative, which I can tell you a little bit more about, which is called Thrive App, which is working with an NHS-approved app provider in the area of mental health as well. So there's lots of things that we're up to at Music Support. My background, last 15 years, has been working for charities primarily, and program development around the areas of peer-to-peer support, disabilities, and working with young adults as well. Prior to that, I was a self-managed artist, so this is kind of full circle for me. It's personal to me. There are a lot of people that are and family members that I have that work within the industry. So that's a bit about me and a bit about Music Support.
Thanks, Eric. Adam Ficek. I asked you the question and then I completely fluffed it. Adam, lovely to see you. Can you tell us a bit about yourself, please, mate?
I'm a musician and a psychotherapist. I've been in the music industry. I was first signed 25 years ago, then different labels, touring as part of a group, as part of electronic DJ outfit, solo artist, different areas, and then retrained 6 years ago to be a psychotherapist, and now specialise within the music industry, whether that's what I call the commercial industry in the framework of the commercial industry, or people that are corporate musicians, and also people that just are musicians part-time. That's my specialist area. Just about to start my doctorate, which is going to be more to do with how we use music therapeutically as well. That's me.
Great, thanks, Adam. Well, thanks everyone. Really appreciate your time today and the sharing of knowledge. So what we want to explore is we're in the middle of this really incredibly unique experience that certainly none of us have ever been through before, and think about how it's affecting the live events industry within the context of mental health. And the first thing I'd like to ask is, and this is a kind of more generalized question, what do we think that the coronavirus means for the live events industry, both currently and for the future? Rachel, could you kick us off, please?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, at the moment with the sort of effectively the global lockdown, that's had a devastating impact on the live events industry and everything that had been scheduled, everything that had been planned. So there's a lot of practitioners that literally overnight suddenly went from having very full calendars and bookings to all of a sudden all the work's suddenly dried up. And I don't know that there's, as you said, I don't know that there's ever been within sort of living history an occasion where that's happened. And we're all trying to, it's a very new landscape. The word unprecedented is used everywhere at the moment, an unprecedented use of the word unprecedented. But it is because we're all finding our feet, and, it's an incredible leveler because, we're all in a position where nobody quite knows what the answer is and what the future holds.
I mean, it's interesting, for me, especially with the three of you, you all come from both connected but slightly different facets of the industry. So, Adam, you're both a practicing psychotherapist, but you're also a musician and DJ. Eric, you're working for a charity and an organisation that works therapeutically, and Rachel, you're working within the educational side, where people are going to be coming into it as newbies, as this is their first experience, and that must in and of itself be a really new experience for you as well, meeting students. What do you think the future holds, Rachel, for being a student? At Backstage Academy, but B, also kind of more long term.
Sure. I mean, I think it's important just to sort of caveat, we've got students who are at different stages of their student life cycle. So sure. we've got the people that we're working with at the moment who are looking to join higher education in this year or next year, and we're working with them to support them because, of course, all of the schools have shut. There's anxiety around what people are going to get for grades and assessments, whether that's going to be a fair reflection of their abilities, and how all of that's going to work, because that's new for everybody. So there's a lot of anxiety around that. Will the university still be open? Will they still be able to go to university and study? Then there's people who have started their higher education journey, people who are at the start of their higher education journey in the first year, who've really, by this stage of sort of April, have just got their feet under the table and starting to feel a bit comfortable. And then, of course, we're all now, I think it's important to say at Backstage, we've moved online. So we're all now working online in a very different way. And that's bound to be disconcerting when you just felt, because it's a big change going into higher education. It's very different than the sort of learning processes that you might have experienced before at college or at school. And so just at that point where you're getting comfortable with it, to then for suddenly to have a massive change very suddenly without much sort of run up to it, or, to prepare yourself for it, is a very difficult thing to deal with. Then, of course, you've got the people who are progressing on their courses, and particularly our graduating students this year. And one of the things, there's a lot of press and there's a lot of speculation within the press, and there's some, I would argue, some responsible reporting and then some speculative reporting, which might create further anxiety. And I think we're just starting to see comments and reporting in and around what the landscape is going to be like for graduating students going into not just within the live event sector and the creative industries, but across all industries. What's that landscape going to be like for our emerging professionals as they come out into industry, and what opportunities are going to be available to them, which is going to be very different than sort of previously. So obviously one of the things that we're exploring at the moment is what we can do to support those students at all of those levels.
Brilliant. Adam, coronavirus, what do you think it means to the live events industry, and your perspective is as both a musician and a psychotherapist?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an anomaly. I don't think it is a leveler. I think that the live music industry is akin to the sports industry, because we are in an industry which relies upon gatherings and much bigger, I guess, collective communal spaces than a lot of industries. So I do think things are going to start to move. So within retail, that's going to be moved on, and other industries, lots of people I know haven't really been affected that much in terms of their own business. But I think when it comes down to, sports especially, and music, this is where there is a correlation. And I think there's two things. I think there's the first phase, which is going to be whatever happens, and the government say, this is okay now, or we slowly start to integrate. But then the other side is the psychological impact of where people are at, and when will they feel confident in getting into a space of even 500 people, let alone 10,000. So I think that's what we're going to have to try to work on in some respects. That's what it means to me contextually, in terms of, I was due to go back out on tour with some old band stuff or solo stuff, so that shifted that. It hasn't really impacted my psychotherapy stuff too much. I've lost quite a few clients, even with negotiating fees, etc. I think people are just pausing, and maybe this is a question for later, but I've seen people almost they realize they need help, but lots of people want to almost kind of isolate even further when it comes to therapy as well. So I think there's many different areas of it, really. I think there's the impact when people are going to feel safe, and I do think the live music industry is going to be impacted a lot more, and it's going to take a lot longer for that to get going. However that looks.
Thanks, Adam. Eric?
Yeah, I think the word of uncertainty, that's another word that's often used in press at the moment, and that's certainly what it means for our industry, collectively and also individually as well for people. And there's been a lot of conversation about the economic impact, and understandably so, and about the impact that's having on people's livelihoods. Less so about people's health, mental health and well-being, or if you're in recovery. The last week or so, the media, there has been a bit of a shift, interestingly, and you're seeing more reports about, okay, what's going to be the long-term impact of this on people's health. And it's okay to talk. And I think, what we've found and experienced, certainly at the charity so far initially, is that people do want to talk, and people do want to reach out and access services. We launched a new service last week, which is an app which is CBT-based cognitive behavioural therapy, and it's an opportunity to access some support via your fingertips. It's not an answer to all the questions and all the need, but it's a way of making support accessible. And I think that's another theme that I'm seeing and hearing, is that people do want to reach out, and they do want to connect still, and they need that more than ever. We had something like 250 new service users respond within the first 6 days just on the app alone, which is, for us as a charity, is unprecedented. So yeah, some challenges there, but we're trying to respond similar to Backstage Academy in terms of making services accessible online, which I think a lot of industries are obviously having to think about right now. This summer we would have been backstage at festivals, and doing things like hosting support groups. And now we've taken that online. And from next week, we'll have 12-step support groups again, which people can access via our website, get in touch with us, and that's another support which is out there. But it's hard to say what the long-term impact is going to be on this. That's the reality. It's a minute-by-minute, hour-by-hour, day-by-day revelation of the impact, and it just requires us to remain connected and work together to find solutions that help people.
Thanks, Eric. I think it leads really nicely to all your answers into the next thing that we're going to explore, which is how do live event freelancers manage through this time? So there's a couple of questions here. How do freelancers manage through this time, and how can they look after their mental health and well-being